This is All Things Cancer, the podcast of the National Foundation for Cancer Research. Each episode explores the hindsight, insights, and foresight of cancer research and care, and how NFCR and its partners are accelerating the path to cures. In this episode, guest host Dr. Hallie Hartman, NFCR's Director of Institute Relations, sits down with Dr. Funmi Olopade, a pioneer in preventive oncology and precision medicine at the University of Chicago. Together, they explore genetic risk, the fight to close cancer disparities, and why Dr. Olopade believes we can eradicate breast cancer as a cause of premature death. This is All Things Cancer.
We're really interested and to learn about, and you probably get this question a lot, is what motivated you to focus on treating breast cancer? Or if you want to say cancer research first, but
Yeah, well, I am a professor at the University of Chicago, but at the time I met Dennis Sliman, we didn't have much to go after in solid tumors. And I remember listening to him describe his seminal paper describing HER2 amplification in breast cancer. We had both been mentored by a woman scientist, a physician scientist, Dr. Janet Rowley. And so thinking about the importance of genomic alterations in cancer and genomic alterations for risk prediction was sort of known in hematologic malignancies, in lymphoma, leukemia. And so I spent my postdoctoral years mapping genes that related to the interferon cluster on chromosome 9. But after listening to Dennis Sliman go after finding new therapies for breast cancer, and the way he went about it, mobilizing women, I thought I had no choice but to go and study breast cancer. So that's really how I got into breast cancer. Really trying to, create a path for myself that was different from my mentor. And then, of course, really understanding that we needed to know more about the germline, which is really where Mary Claire King and all the discoveries of tumor suppressor genes, finding genes for inherited cancers, all those really discoveries were made in the 90s. And I call those years the glory years of cancer genetics. But it's taken us a long time to make it meaningful for patients. And that's why I'm thinking that 30 years later, we actually have a chance to eradicate breast cancer as a cause of premature death. And it's really been because of the fundamental work that a lot of people have done to have a better understanding of, one, what are the inherited risk factors for breast cancer? And two, why do breast cancers behave in so many different ways? And by being able to apply genomic technologies, we suddenly realized that breast cancer was not one disease. It impacts every woman in unique ways. And that's what I'm excited to be able to solve.
Yeah. What about prevention and early detection? Kind of, ahead of the treatment.
Yeah. So, having spent 30 years of my life finding ways to treat breast cancer in young women. And really thinking about the discovery of BRCA1, the first breast cancer susceptibility genes. And then fast forward, not only do we have BRCA1, we have BRCA2, PALB2, and now we're sequencing whole genomes. And so my lab has really been very focused on etiology, right? Because when I started my career, it was that, the reason you get breast cancer is because you're a woman. But not every woman develops breast cancer. So what's the difference between those women who develop breast cancer and those who don't? And so that's really why I'm very excited to do what I call preventive oncology now. We can sequence the entire genome. We can apply artificial intelligence, deep learning, to understand risk by just looking at a woman's mammogram. And, in 2004, sitting in my clinic at the University of Chicago, women will come to me and said, well, I have BRCA1 mutation, but I don't want to have my breast off. Aren't there alternatives? And to me, that made sense. Why would a healthy 25-year-old have to go and have their breast taken off just because we now identify them as having BRCA1 mutation? So, I work at the University of Chicago, and they're just a lot of really bright people who think outside the box. And so we started really thinking about how we could image the breast in 3 dimensions, how we can bring magnetic resonance imaging in. And, at that time, to get a breast MRI, it would take 90 minutes just to capture. But now I'm excited that we can actually do ultra-fast and abbreviated MRI. We can make it faster, cheaper. We don't have to use radiation. We can integrate blood-based biomarkers into it. So every high-risk person shouldn't just wait till they're 40 or 50 and then find that they have advanced cancer.
Right.
So I'm going after young women, and I'm going after integrating both the genetic risk factors with lifestyle. So if we know that you are increased risk for breast cancer, well, maybe you can drink less. Maybe you can exercise more. Maybe you can avoid pollutants that increase the risk. And I think that's why preventive oncology and the prevention research, we can move that faster now because we have the tools to identify high-risk individuals. So all along, we've been talking about risk prediction, but all those biomarkers were developed for treatment of cancer.
Yes.
And now I think we can really do biomarkers of risk. You can wear, devices on yourself. You can do a simple blood test. We can even measure things in the environment that might increase your risk. All those things now need to be integrated in the modern era of big data science. And so I'm excited to do preventive oncology, because once we identify high-risk individuals, maybe we just need to augment the immune system to wipe out, the earliest signs of cancer. But I think the next decade will get us there.
I see so many more people, men and women, wearing, the digital watches. So hopefully they'll get the next one that has all the biomarkers and so forth.
Well, I think, this is the age of convergence, right? We started off only thinking about biology, molecular biology, making it drill down to the molecule. But now we know that that's reductionist, that what we really need is to be able to integrate so much more that makes a human being, including your stress level.
Yeah, you sleep well.
Whether you sleep well. So now I monitor myself. How many hours of sleep did I get? And so I think, I think we can all live healthier lives.
How do you define patient-centric care, since you're so focused on in your clinic and patients and, bringing them up to speed on how they can, help in their own health care?
Yeah, so, I'm a Black woman, and very often people talk about Black women having the highest mortality rate from breast cancer. And so every time I read the statistics, I then ask myself, is it because they're Black, or is it because they haven't had access to innovative clinical trials? And I love using the example of some of the early studies we did with young women with HER2 positive breast cancer. And some of these women were bold enough to cross the bridge from Northwest Indiana to participate in clinical trial at the University of Chicago. And some of these women presented with stage 4 HER2 positive breast cancer.
Oh my.
And by being able to get early access to HER2 targeted therapy, I can count the number of women who are alive today because they were able to access the cures of the future right there, because they left home and came to the University of Chicago. Well, how about women who cannot come to the University of Chicago? Is it possible for us to create a system whereby we can meet every person where they live. And that's why I think that some of the exciting areas of work now is distributing clinical trials into communities to broaden access, making sure that academic centers like myself, my University of Chicago, can go out there and be out there where patients actually live. And I think when we do that, then we're really thinking about the patient, not about us.
Right.
I can have the most advanced ideas around breast cancer, but if patients cannot access my work, what's the point? So, this organization is global in its intent. The National Foundation for Cancer Research and US leadership should be global. And I'm very interested in the idea that there's so many women all over the world who don't have access to care. There's so many women in this country, the greatest country on earth, that don't have access to cures. And for a very long time, we blamed them as, well, they're too fat, they're too poor. The blame was on the patient who had disparities. And we never once addressed the system that made it impossible for patients to access clinical trials. So I'm really very interested in solving that problem, where now, a lot of our drugs, if you take PARP inhibitors for BRCA1 mutation carriers, it's an oral drug, and you can deliver it in the mail to anybody if that's what's going to cure their cancer. And so I'm really excited that we are at the point where everyone is thinking about patient-centric care, being take the studies to where the patients live, take the innovation globally. And, I work in Nigeria because, Nigerian government invested in my medical education. And when I think about Black women across the diaspora, they just have breast cancer just like anybody else. But then there might be some things in the environment. There might be other things that work on your genome that may make your cancer trajectory different than the person next door. So that's why in the era of precision oncology, we're talking about, we need to learn about all the different ways that breast cancer manifests. And before knowing about all the different ways it manifests, we first have to study diverse populations of women. So that's why I'm excited that it's not about being Black or white. It's about all of us working in solidarity to solve breast cancer.
Yeah, that's just phenomenal. Yeah. But how do you make that patient-centric? I know you in your outreach, but is the community, helping you
Well, I think,
reach these communities?
I think the fact that everyone is talking about patient-centric care and also trying to act on this idea that breast cancer is not one disease, that we have to remove barriers. And sometimes, and I can tell you because I've done all my work and I've practiced on the south side of Chicago. So at some point we will go to the community and the idea was that, it's a myth that breast cancer is not curable. And we would say it was a myth. But if you actually go to the community and ask people who live in these disadvantaged communities, they'll tell you they've never seen anyone survive cancer. Because by the time these patients gain access, it's already advanced. So is that a myth or is that their reality, right? So by really being able to be in the community, by being able to listen to our neighbors, by being able to remove the barriers, by going to people where they live, we actually gained a lot of insights. And the insight is that when I'm in my clinic, if I ask my patient to participate in research, they all want to participate. That's why I've been able to get my patients who come to my clinic and who see me looking like them, speaking in the language that they understand, they get it. And that's why, research on communications has been so critical. Research on stigma has been so critical in advancing patient-centered care. When I got to Chicago, it was at the beginning of the AIDS epidemic. We didn't know what caused AIDS. It was expensive.
Sure.
We couldn't figure out what was going on. People were dying. But as soon as we all acted in solidarity, now we're talking about the possibility of eradicating HIV in the population. And that's really how I see breast cancer, that women all over the world are, working hard. I became a breast cancer researcher because the Department of Defense and women marched on Washington. They wanted to declare war on breast cancer. And we've spent a lot of money on that war. And the question is, we don't want to leave anybody behind.
That's right.
We don't want to leave anyone in the battlefield injured and unable to, have a life after a diagnosis of breast cancer. So that's why I really believe that if we can do risk assessment, really get every woman to ask the question, what is my risk for breast cancer? And don't wait until you get breast cancer to ask that question. Take a genetic test. So I'm really asking everyone from age 25, age 30, what's my risk for breast cancer? Young women, what am I doing to increase my risk for breast cancer when I'm 40? If we all get young women, and they're very smart these days, they know it, and young girls begin to learn about their breast health, then the women who get breast cancer in their 30s or in their 40s are not being told to wait until they're 50 to get a mammogram. They know right from their 20s what they should be doing while they're having babies, while they are breastfeeding, whatever they're doing in their 20s and 30s, they are thinking about the long term. And that's why I think that when we think about the needs of every woman, and of course we can say the same thing for prostate cancer and other cancers, the need of every person is to really think about, what am I doing to increase my risk for breast cancer? What am I doing that's increasing my risk for colorectal cancer? And I think alcohol, this is the one thing that I'm telling everybody now. My goals, my students, it's like, we talked about tobacco when I was growing up, and I think this is the time to start talking about alcohol now. Everything in moderation, and of course, exercising and, the obesity epidemic, all those things increase cancer risk, and we really need to get a handle on it.
As far as treatment for breast cancer, what do you see the next 5 years? Let's not go 10, but 5, because everyone wants to know what's next. But next is, really in a few years. Will there be big changes?
Yeah, I mean,
or 10 years, but,
Yeah, well, I mean, if you know how all the number of drugs that are in the pipeline now that we are studying, first of all, by understanding mechanisms of resistance and by learning from the seminal work that was done with HER2 positive breast cancer. We went from HER2 positive breast cancer to triple negative breast cancer, and now we're looking at the, what we call the slow growing estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, and we're understanding dormancy. We're understanding that, sometimes maybe one drug isn't what we should be using. Maybe we should be doing combinations, like when you're thinking about treating bacterial infection and you're using multiple antibiotics so that you don't develop resistance. So I think we're learning a lot about how to optimize, do that biomarker test, right? Make molecular diagnostics important. Or, as we heard today, maybe it would just be that digital pathology where just from that slide, we can make a diagnosis of all the things that are wrong in the tumor microenvironment, and we can then say, here's how to put all the wirings together and eradicate that clone that could become metastatic. And I think that's closer now than ever before. And it's possible for us to do it on a global scale.
Wow, that would be something. Well, with the National Foundation for Cancer Research, how do you think that we as a foundation are aiding in the advancement of cancer research and treatment?
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned over the years is that you have to put multiple stakeholders together. One thing is for me to have a brilliant idea. It's another thing for me to get somebody to believe that idea and help me move it to the next level. And this actually really came to me I love my family. I have, two wonderful daughters and my son, and we both we all went to Kilimanjaro, and at the time we went up the summit, and I was coming down, and I was going to come and write this huge grant for my breast spore. And after 8 glorious days on the mountain, I didn't want to come down.
No.
Because I knew, the next 3 months were going to be rotten, right? And then, my daughter, who had just completed her, finished her MBA, said, "Why, Mommy, why are you always writing grants?" And it dawned on me that actually we need stakeholders, we need investors, we need entrepreneurs. And so reluctantly, she made me become an entrepreneur and said, "You need to start a company." And I think this is what the National Foundation for Cancer Research does really well, where you're bringing the best ideas together with investors, and then you're bringing physicians in, and we're all thinking about solving the problem of cancer. That, I think, is what makes this really a wonderful organization.
Yeah, and there's just so many discoveries that are left behind because of the Valley of Death. And
the Valley of Death. Yeah.
And what about today already, the Global Summit? All these different groups for one day in the same room.
In the same room. And I think, we all speak different languages, but if we actually pay attention to each other and try to understand the problems we have, I think we'll have faster solutions. So I'm really excited that, we are having a convergence. We get the tools and the acceleration in terms of the scientific knowledge, what technology can achieve for us, and the fact that these technologies will not be deployed in isolation. You still need wonderful doctors who can help their patients pick the right drugs, and it's all about the right drug for the right patient at the right time. And so I think the National Foundation for Cancer Research really does have a significant role to play, and I'm really excited that beyond writing the grant and waiting every 5 years or having your grants rejected, that you can come to a different place and really sell your ideas and pitch your ideas. And that's why the innovation in this country has really fueled new businesses, fueled productivity, and I'm looking forward to the next decade where it wouldn't take us 30 years. Earlier today, with all the excitement, one of my colleagues was talking about the work I did 30 years ago, mapping the interferon genes, and how now that's really one of the really hottest areas that everybody's trying to figure out how, the mechanisms for immune resistance. That took too long. But it was because we didn't have the tools. And now that we have the tools, there will be new challenges for us to think about for the future. But the continued investments of resources, the renewal of the entire landscape by investing in the future, I think has allowed American science to keep leading the world. And it's just been wonderful to meet colleagues today who are thinking about the future.
I mean, sitting here with you, I can imagine in your clinic patients, I can see them wanting to see you and have more time with you. It's by osmosis, I feel your excitement and encouragement. So, you always hear about patients not having enough time with their physicians, but.
Well, this is one of the things that I get to do as a professor. I can control my time, and it's also wonderful to be able to be in clinic and teach the next generation. And so yesterday, coming from Chicago, I have 2 fellows who are there in clinic with me. One is a 3rd-year fellow, one is a 1st year, and every time they see a patient, they want to learn from you, and you have to give time to them and really help them. And it's that interaction, patient-centered, teaching the patient about their illness, and then teaching the next generation how to engage with patients. I think that's what it's all about.
Of course, And there's you can schedule all you want, but following it is another thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's really been, I every day I talk about being a physician scientist and caring for cancer patients, I think it's the best job on the planet. Right? We have days when we have failures, and those things make you think. Like, we were talking about my young patient who was looking for the cure, and but you know what? She wanted me to make sure that we could get cells from her, we could have organoids, and we could have new ways to study so that the next person will benefit from the research. And so you meet patients like that, and they motivate you. They motivate you. And so, to all the patients out there, thank you for really pushing us to be better doctors and then to leave the clinic, to go back to the lab and want to accelerate progress in cancer research.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for listening to this episode of All Things Cancer. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss future conversations. To learn more about how the National Foundation for Cancer Research is working with the global research community to make cures possible, visit nfcr.org. You can also reach us directly at 800-321-CURE.